hi, and welcome to another episode of Wellness in the Workplace. My name is Mbadi Mziane, and I am your host. Wellness in the Workplace is a podcast that aims to equip new and experienced professionals with the tools and insights to navigate challenging workplace dynamics. And in today's episode, we are talking about managing stress and avoiding burnout. Being in a pandemic over the last 2 years has really exacerbated the pressures that we feel in our day-to-day lives, and this has led to increased stress, increased anxiety, fatigue, and potentially even premature burnout. And to unpack this topic with me today, I have occupational therapist and creator of advocacy for mental health, Makungu Valoyi, and we're going to be chatting about this. Welcome to Wellness in the Workplace.
Thank you, Mbali. I've been looking forward to it ever since we spoke on Instagram.
Yes, I've also been looking forward to it because I have been following you on social as well, and I'm a fan of your work and a fan of just, the awareness that you're driving on social media around mental health, around mental disabilities, and I'm just hoping we can tap into some of that insight of yours on today's episode.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, but before we get straight into our topic, I usually ask my guests to just introduce themselves to our audience. So please just share who Makungu Valoyi is and what exactly you do with your work as an occupational therapist.
Yeah, thank you. So yes, as you've introduced me so beautifully, I'm an occupational therapist by profession. I'm also just in the process of completing my master's degree.
Yes.
It's also in mental health, which I'm excited about. And I have the page Advocacy for Mental Health, which aims to raise awareness regarding mental illness, as well as how to take care of your mental health. Because I've realized that as much as I'm treating patients with mental disability, the public at large are the people that my patients are going back to, who need to be aware of the different disabilities, but also how to take care of themselves so that they don't end up in sort of that similar situation or worse. So occupational therapy, as you've mentioned so nicely before we started talking, it's reintegrating people back into society. So how we do this based on someone's disability, so we work throughout all ages from the moment you're born till old age, right? We teach you skills, or we treat your physical or mental disability, and we also adapt the environment so that you're able to live your roles independently, your quality of life is improved, and you're able to function within that role that you're given.
Love that. And I mean, that's a very clear and distinct description of occupational therapy, because before we came on, I was asking you about the difference between a normal psychologist or therapist versus an occupational therapist. And I think you've highlighted exactly what the difference is, or the difference rather is. So going straight into today's topic, talking about stress, I think we talk about stress just in general, not really understanding what exactly it is and the impact it has on our bodies, as well as the chemical reactions within our bodies when we are stressed out. So what happens to our bodies when we're stressed at a biological level?
I love that. Because yes, they're normal things that stress us, like the traffic, maybe a deadline, but also relational difficulty, a loss of a job, etc. And sort of it also happens, as you said, on a biological level. So our bodies respond to that stressor, right? And our brains then locate or let our nervous system know that, okay, we're stressed right now. Then cortisol gets released. Cortisol is a hormone in the brain, a stress response, right? And in that stress response, we either fight, flight, or we freeze, right? So have you ever noticed when, let's say, a dog is coming at you, you either, I don't know anyone who'd fight the dog, but you either run away and you like surprised, how did I get so far, right? That adrenaline, or you freeze and you don't know what to do, because those are different stress responses that people have. Right? So when we're stressed, we either fight, flight, or freeze. But then with that, there are also other physiological changes. It changes to appetite, right? We start trembling, right? gastro changes, you have diarrhea maybe before a test or before you have to public speak, right? There's also psychological changes where your memory, thought blank, right?
Sure.
Or racing thoughts, all the thoughts come at once.
Yeah.
Your concentration is decreased, right? And I'd say for longer term type of stress, you'd also see your skin starts flaking or, breaking out, and you can literally see it. Maybe your hair starts falling out in your nails as well.
Sure.
So there is a definite physiological response that happens due to this cortisol that is released, whether it's once off where it helps you fight, flight, or freeze, but then over periods of time, then it might have those changes to your physiology where even your blood pressure gets increased, your heart rate, and so on. That can cause other serious medical conditions if not treated or managed.
Yeah. Sure. Those are a lot of signs actually that one can always refer to indicate if they are stressed out. But I think there are varying degrees of stress. And how would you then, differentiate if this is a healthy level of stress versus a severe unhealthy one that could have prolonged effects on your well-being?
I'd like to add the good and the bad stressors.
Okay.
So there's distress, and with distress, our response is usually decreased functioning. So we don't want to get out of bed. Maybe a loss, a divorce, a breakup. You're not necessarily motivated and want to continue. You just kind of maybe need a break, etc. Where you stress, the good type of stress is where you're motivated. Maybe you get a promotion, you're going on a date, you're getting married, buying a car. So then your increased vitality. So we have sort of, I'd say, good and bad stresses where we respond accordingly. But in terms of the severity, stress is a part of life. And if the stress is untreated, so even things like in traffic that might seem, I'd say, small and can be treated when I get to work or when I'm in a free lane. But if it's untreated and I have the same sort of responses for long periods of time, it can cause muscle tension. And all of a sudden, then I'm like walking with a hunch, for example, or I have sort of... not necessarily walking with a hunch, but sort of you can feel it physiologically, like you can literally feel the knots tension. In your, the tension that wasn't treated. So I wouldn't say there's sort of mild and severe stress, but it can grow to that point if it's not treated. Yes, there is acute stresses where a car accident, it's not something that happens every day. And you kind of have to then, you still go through the same fight, flight, or freeze response. But in terms of severity, it only leads to, if it's chronic stress, then it can lead to things like burnout or diagnosable medical conditions, because maybe ulcers or chronic headaches or something like that, where I hadn't treated the initial stress response, if that makes sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So then how can we go about being proactive about managing these day-to-day stresses, because we are going back to work now, we're stuck in traffic, we run late, we have all these things that we're juggling between work and life, and it's almost inevitable that we will experience a certain level of stress in our day-to-day lives. So how can we be more proactive about managing stress at work, in our day-to-day lives, etc.?
I'd say there could be two approaches to this. The first is a lifestyle change or a lifestyle adaptation. And then the second is...
That seems big.
Yeah, it is, because we know stress is a part of life. It's like saying, I know I'm going to eat. I know I'm going to have to sleep. I know I'm going to have to face this and this person. So what do I do then to manage myself, right? So that's why I say it's sort of a lifestyle adaptation. The second one is then, when I'm stressed, what do I do? So with the lifestyle adaptation, it's building yourself up, since you know that stress is a part of life. And I want to add in the word resilience, which isn't really a word that is, celebrated.
It doesn't have good connotations lately.
But resilience basically means, how can I still face my struggles, heal from it, and then still go back to my community and still contribute. So it's not saying deal with it or take it and then until you can't anymore. It's, how can I put measures in place that when stress happens, I get to process and deal with it and then continue. So that's resilience.
So resilience is like a muscle, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we even use sort of like an elastic band analogy, right? So that you're still able to live your purpose and find meaning in life, even though we know that difficulty is a part of life. So the first one, I would say exercise. Because of, we've mentioned the physiological changes that happen when we're stressed. Stress takes a toll on your body. It's important to exercise to build those vital organs, to really make your heart muscles stronger. Also that muscle tension, right? It also channels your emotions when you're stressed, okay? So recommended 30 minutes, 3 to 5 times a week. Okay, another one is sleep. So we go through,
I remember you shared a post about why sleep is important on World Sleep Day.
Oh, yeah. I really love sleep. Because there are we go through different sleep stages, and not to go too much in depth, but each sleep cycle and sleep stage, something important happens. And essentially...
Please do take us through that.
This is where I'm like, did I prepare? No, but okay, so briefly said, the first stage or the first cycle is light sleep.
Okay.
I can still hear the phone ringing. I can still hear people. It's easy to wake me up. The second and third stage, summarized, it's when I'm going into deep sleep. My muscles become paralyzed. My temperature drops, right? It's difficult to wake me up. My breathing becomes regular. Okay, so this is where it's like difficult to wake someone up and they're in deep sleep.
Deep sleep,
Then the last stage is called repetitive eye movement, where dreaming happens, breathing becomes irregular. You can sort of, you can see that someone's dreaming, you're sweating, etc. So in deep sleep is where rejuvenation happens. You know, the short term goes into long term. Your muscles, your body restores itself and rejuvenates. Okay, so each sleep stage has different sleep cycles or bundles, and each bundle is about 90 minutes, which then accounts to the 7 to 9 hours of sleep that they say adults should have. So it's not just a number that was conjured, it's actually scientific, so that you can rest and restore to combat stress. So have you noticed that days when you've slept for 2 hours, like
you are stressed and
even
anxious?
Even the smallest things are very, you snap at people that you wouldn't usually do. So that's another way. So exercise, sleep, and then your diet. You can obviously go in depth with a, certified nutritionist, a dietitian, but there are foods that give us energy and food that take away our energy, right? And it's important to then consume foods that decrease that inflammation and, hydrate yourself, essentially. So food or nutrition, diet, sleep and exercise, those are sort of the long-term, I'd say, adaptations that you need to put into place. And then psychologically as well, since we know that stress takes a toll on my psychology, not only on my physical body. So I'm an advocate for journaling. Because with journaling, you're able to clarify your thinking, you're able to put thought on paper, you're able to identify your triggers as well. So putting in journaling or speaking to a support structure or people that you can trust as a form of sort of long-term, I wouldn't say it's stress management technique, but more of, because I know stress is a part of life, let me put these measures in place so that when I'm stressed, it doesn't take so much a toll on my physical body, psychologically, and sort of now I'm isolated and I have no one to speak to because I didn't have these things in place.
These outlets,
So now I sort of want to move on to now I'm stressed, what then? Since yes, I have these measures in place, but now when I'm stressed, what can I do? So I'll suggest the breathing technique. So because your body, or when you're stressed, cortisol is secreted and it stimulates that fight, flight or freeze response. Breathing allows oxygen to come into your muscles, into your bloodstream, and it helps to also relax, right? It sort of counters that moment of stress, right? Or those type of reactions. So diaphragmatic breathing is where you put your hand on your chest and on your belly, and then you breathe in through your nose. 4 to 5 seconds. Imagine there's a balloon in your belly that you're blowing up as you breathe in. Then as you breathe out, you breathe out through your nose, your mouth, and so on. About 4 to 5 times, and really just listen to your breathing. Okay. Another one is also putting ice or a cold, doesn't have to be ice, maybe a fruit or anything around your face. That also helps with the mindfulness, but it also sort of gets your body into that, okay, we're back into where are we now? What's happening in this moment? So those are sort of the two techniques that you can apply. If you feel that, okay, how do I manage the stress that I'm having right now? But it's really a lifestyle adaptation
change,
more than anything.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about burnout. So at what point does one experience burnout? And in answering that question, what exactly is it, or what does it mean when we say we are burnt out?
So with burnout, it's actually classified as a work-related phenomenon, where you experience prolonged or chronic stress. So it's not the same as stress. So high levels of stress is not burnout, but if I'm experiencing stress and it's unmanaged for long periods of time, then it can lead to burnout. And the reason burnout is different to stress is because stress I can manage. So I'm stressed right now, a deadline is coming up, I can manage it. But burnout is that stage where you can no longer just go on a holiday, can no longer just do a breathing technique or decrease your workload to cure the burnout. It either takes months or even years to treat it, because you've reached that level of apathy for your work, low motivation, you're becoming absent, you're becoming cynical, you're no longer sort of motivated, you're not concentrating as much, you're isolating yourself from your colleagues. So it's sort of that. It happens. It doesn't just happen. It happens after long periods of unmanaged stress. Then burnout. That's essentially what burnout is.
So what happens at a psychological level when you're burnt out, and also at a physiological level in terms of your body? How does your body respond to burnout?
So energy levels, right? Low energy levels. I'd say even sleep difficulty. So with stress, you're also experiencing sleep difficulty, and you usually know, okay, I'm stressed because of this and this. But with burnout, it can be long term. Now you're not even identifying what the actual problem is in terms of my sleep difficulty. Your appetite has changed. You're eating too much or too little. Your motivation, so psychologically, you're not motivated for the things you used to be motivated for. Your mood is affected, so you're no longer maybe excited to do the things that you normally would. And then that takes a toll on your self-esteem as well. So it's kind of, I'd say burnout, it's not a mental illness per se, but it is it can be diagnosed as a medical condition because of all those other symptoms that are long-term and not just out of, okay, if we remove a stressor, your stress will go away. If you remove the stressor with burnout, you still feel that deep sense of apathy and not accomplishing the things that you used to do at work, or not even motivated. So I'd say, physiologically, psychologically, it's those long-term changes in appetite, your muscle tension, but long-term.
Look, as you're talking, I mean, some of the symptoms that you're highlighting, both physiologically and psychologically, remind me of depression. So would you say that burnout can lead to depression, or is a form of depression?
I would say that because, with stress, let's say I'm stressed right now, I have a gastro difficulty, or and then I'm diagnosed with ulcers later because I didn't manage the stress. So with that being said, the same with burnout and psychologically, that right now I might be stressed, I have, thoughts racing, and then it happens for long periods of time. It can lead to conditions such as anxiety, depression, because it wasn't managed. And because a person is so holistic, there are many factors that contribute to you as a person that, yes, I would say that, not that, burnout equals depression, but I wouldn't be surprised when someone is burnt out, but they also have underlying depression. Or they have depression underlying, because it can lead to the other, because you're also living a holistic life. So you might be burnt out at work, but then something happens in your other life, your social life, and then that can sort of affect as well.
Okay. But there's also just a perception that, burnout happens to people at a later stage in their career.
Yeah.
So after they've gone through, years and years of stress or of being in stressful environments, then they experience, burnout. And that's when they either go on a sabbatical or take time off work or whatever the case is. But I don't think that's the case, actually. I feel like it can happen at any stage of your career. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with you. And I think because, the older generation might say, oh, but you're so young.
Yes. People think that because we're young, we have vitality, we have all this energy, and that we wouldn't be, prone to something like burnouts. And I don't think that's true.
And I think, yes, I can see the truth in terms of you're starting to earn a salary, you're buying the things that they deem as success, a house, a car, all these lovely things that are happening. But there are stages to burnout. So the first stage is the honeymoon stage, 5 stages. Okay. So the first stage would look like the honeymoon stage, where you experience job satisfaction and motivation. You're taking on tasks. You want to do more. You want to do over and above. People are saying, no, calm down. You're like, no, I have the energy. I can do this, right? And then level 2 would be stress, where, deadlines are now starting to pile up. Then, you're becoming stressed. But obviously, because we know burnout is unmanaged stress, then it leads to chronic stress, which is long-term stress. Now I'm not managing the stress, it's making me stressed, it's causing more stress. Then it leads to burnout, which, if obviously we've determined that it takes years or months to heal or work through burnout. So I agree with them that in terms of the younger generation have much more energy, but if we take on that mentality that it won't happen to me, and we stay in the honeymoon phase, and we don't deal with the stresses that come, it can lead to burnout. So I agree, it happens to anyone at any stage of life or their job.
And how do we then take these preventative and proactive measers to avoid burnout? I mean, just before we came on, I mentioned that I was on leave, and I'm feeling so energized because I took time out, and I think that is one of the preventative ways of being able to do that. But outside of just taking time off work, as regularly as possible, still maintaining obviously a sense of commitment to your job, how else do you then make sure that you prevent and you avoid the risk of burnout?
I think it's also adding those things in your day. So not sort of waiting for leave, because we only get limited amount of days. So after work, do something creative that sort of breaks that work-life cycle, if I can call it that. So maybe take a walk, make a meal, a creative meal, dance, do something creative for yourself, right? And with that, I'm speaking of rest and nurturing yourself. So since we know that stress is a part of life and burnout doesn't discriminate. So
it definitely does not.
So really consider rest, not after you've done a hard job or after you've completed a project after 3 months, but schedule it every week, maybe every day after work, where you schedule just rest time, me time, just to really check in with yourself. Do something you love, something you enjoy. I know hobbies, people are like, oh, I don't have hobbies. But really, it doesn't have to be anything, like now go paint a canvas. But just do something fun, listen to a song, video call a friend, watch a jokes or something like that, just to really get that creativity going. So self-care, that speaks to self-care. And then I also want to say, be aware of your own triggers, your stress triggers, your stress response, self-awareness. So be aware, okay, I usually take on tasks and then at the end I'm like depleted. So really knowing yourself and your stress response, and then applying those stress management techniques that we've spoken about, those lifestyle adaptation. And then boundaries. I think there are many reasons why one may struggle to say no at work. Maybe you're starting out, you want to be seen as the hero, but really realizing, okay, if I want to be sustainable in this job, I should work maybe what I've already signed on my contract, or maybe I should prioritize my lunch breaks. I shouldn't take on tasks that are not a part of my schedule, or maybe I should only do things for others after I've done my own work. So putting boundaries in place at work, or not taking work home, or having a separate place where I work that is not in my lounge. So putting boundaries in place that you're not now, work is everywhere you go, will also assist with sort of preventative measures for burnout. And I think the most important thing is just that mindset of realizing that it can happen. It's not, it can happen to you. So I should apply these measures because I want to be sustainable at work and not necessarily I want to slow down. It actually will help you to be productive in the long run.
Okay. So you highlighted prioritizing rest, and I previously did an episode on rest on the podcast. So I want to ask you how you're prioritizing rest and you're managing stress in your life.
I definitely every week when I plan my week, I always look for my rest day. Like, whereas I only work for 6 days. Yes, there are days where I'm not saying, I do this consistently, but I would say that's one principle I apply where I just schedule one day off. It's a Sunday or Saturday or whenever I'm off at work. And that's where I get to paint, bake, go to the swimming class, try something new. Even sometimes just to watch series. But I really just put it first. Like, how people save their money first. I prioritize rest first. Depending on the day that I think is most free for me. So that's one way I do it. And then I think, for me, creating content is a form of rest for me, like those reels.
Yeah, she does really good content.
I really enjoy the music, and it helps me just to dance, like in my apartment. And those little things for me is how I rest in my day. But I definitely prioritize a day, or even if it's a half day, a week, where I'm just not focusing on work, not focusing on anything but like me and creativity. So that's one way. And in terms of managing stress, exercise, gym, like the gym classes for me are everything because I'm motivated. It's 5 o'clock, we have step, so I know I can release or express myself in that sense. And sometimes I just curl up in bed and then I'm like, shoo, all these things, why aren't you applying them? But I'm grateful to have a support structure that knows, Makungu, you're not being yourself, like you haven't been yourself the past week, what's happening? And then I'm able to talk to others. So I think I've established support where I know that every Wednesday I must receive a call from this friend. Every Thursday we're meeting with these group of friends. Then when I'm not there, I have to be accountable and obviously say, guys, I'm not well, so they can check up on me. So I am grateful for that, but don't always get it right. So
it's all a learning. It's all a learning. Cool. So it wouldn't be an episode on wellness in the workplace if I don't ask you as my guest about, a bonus questions. And the first one is, what podcast, video, or book that you've listened to or read that shifted your perspective about work?
Sure. I can't remember the specific name of the podcast. I'm not sure if it's the Michelle Obama podcast or because I'm listening to also like To My Sisters, a lot of podcasts. But I remember one of them mentioning that work will always be able to replace you.
Sure.
But your husband, your kids, your family, they only have one you. Ooh. And that really shifted my perspective to think, okay, my family members, they only have me, their daughter. There's only one Makungu at home who plays a very important role in the family dynamic. Whereas at work, yes, I believe I do bring value, but there's always going to be another OT who needs to do the work as well, who can do the work. So that for me shifted my perspective to really put my priorities in place, that as much as I will work, but I will also realize that my first priority is the people who, if I'm not there, there's no one else who will fill in the void. So I think that's
sure. That's a huge perspective shift. Actually, very good. And what does wellness in the workplace look like for you? Firstly, for yourself when you are at work, and also for some of the patients that would come to you and maybe just seek advice on what to look out for in a healthy work environment.
Sure. For me, it's definitely we're allowed to like listen to music while we're doing our admin. For me, that really is just I can put on my gospel, I can put on what I'm listening. Yeah, it can motivate me, but also I'm grateful for like my watch.
Yeah.
It helps me after every hour. I'm able to take a stretch. So I usually just go take a stretch, make myself some tea or drink some water. So just sort of like an external hello, you've been sitting for too long. That for me looks like wellness, especially I also prioritize my lunches.
Yes.
I really enjoy just working hard, and then lunchtime is how are you guys doing? What do you guys do this weekend? So those little things for me look like wellness for me in the workplace. And then with regards to my patients, I've noticed that a lot of times it's the boundaries where maybe they've been doing extra, where they're not meant to do extra, or maybe conflict at work. Sure. And then either other people are taking advantage of them or stuff like that. So it's usually more of standing up for yourself, realizing that maybe this is where I let something go or I have to change perspective altogether. Because essentially you're still building yourself, you're still building the skill, but maybe not in the same institution or the same environment that is toxic to you. So I think a lot of my patients, majority, I would say it's a boundary issue more than anything. And once that is changed, then their well-being can see improvement.
Okay. And then lastly, what are the 3 things you tell your younger self about being a professional, a working professional?
Sure. I'd say like you're still you.
Yeah.
Because I think for me, a lot of times, especially with the movies, like you see the women at work, they become this like different person and serious. And for me, I've always felt like, okay, I must be this person. And then when I'm out of work, I'm this person. But bringing my personality to my job and like the same person I am at work, okay, to a certain degree, but I am outside of work, the same jokes and all that. And it's really freeing to know that I can still work on myself and bring it to work. So you're still you.
Authenticity.
Like it's really freeing and and another thing is transferable skills. So yes, I know that this is your dream job, but realize that you're also building yourself up.
Yes.
So as much as you're working even a job that isn't what you qualified for at the moment, build those transferable skills for yourself. So even if I'm not working as an OT, I'll always be looking at ways to advocate, ways to assist and improve. Doesn't necessarily need to be patient therapist contact, but how can I still build myself up, build those skills that for me, those transferable skills that I can use in another institution. And the last one, that I'd tell myself, I don't think I have 3. A third one.
Okay, that's fine.
I think it's those 2, like just bring your personality to the table as well, bring you, and then use your job to build yourself up, your self-confidence. That's another thing. So for me, I think speaking to patients on a daily basis has really helped me to just build that self-confidence that I needed. I've always tried to articulate myself better. So I'm like, okay, I'm talking to people every day. Let me practice this with people instead of like doing it on the side or something like that.
Okay. And any closing remarks about our topic, about advocacy for mental health, which is your Instagram page, or anything in relation to just well-being and wellness overall, not specifically in the workplace?
Sure. I think closing remark is treat yourself like a resource. And by this I mean I'd like to bring in the golden goose analogy.
Okay, what is that?
So you are a goose, you produce golden eggs.
Yes.
But instead of hammering the goose to produce more eggs, rather take care of the goose so that it's consistent in producing the golden eggs. So don't become greedy now and try and work yourself so that you can produce the same amount of work. Realize that you're a resource, and for the resource to keep going, you need to pour into yourself and be sustainable, be intentional, so that you can keep producing those golden eggs instead of like, I need to get them all now and then realize without
you have
the
nothing
goose,
left.
without the goose, there are no eggs.
Yeah,
So
I like that. I really, really like that. Well, thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate your insights. Please do follow Makungu's page on Instagram. It's at Advocacy for Mental Health. And also while you're there, you can follow Wellness in the Workplace. It is at Wellness in the Workplace _. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're watching, if you're listening, thank you for your support. My name is Mbali Mzingane. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.